We are ready to talk about directions on Review and Preview 2.3.4. For our first question, question 86, it asks you to look at the generic rectangle that's there. Part A, what are the two numbers being multiplied using this rectangle? You are going to have to figure out what are the dimensions across the top of the generic rectangle and what are the dimensions along the side. Those are the numbers they're looking for in Part A. Part B, when it says to write the product as a sum of the areas, they're asking you, hey, what's that equation we've been writing out? This times this, plus all of our partial products, equals our grand total here at the end. Part C, when it's asking about using the distributive property to write an equation showing that the product is equal to an expression with parentheses, multiplication, and addition. There are two different ways that you could answer this and be correct. It just depends on which of the two factors from Part A that you're going to leave alone and which of those that you are going to split up. So I'm looking to see a number out in front times something plus something inside parentheses. That's the format we're looking for. For question 87, they're showing us a group of numbers and it asks you which would be best, dot plots, bar graphs, histograms, or stem and leaf plots. Hopefully if you notice the data, you're going to see that it does not have a terribly big range. It ranges from 8 to 12. We have several values that duplicate, several that are repeating. So because of that, a dot plot is going to be your best choice. So for your answer sheet on this blank right here, we would write dot plot. And then to create the display, I need to see a number line. It's going to have an arrow on each end, and we want to have number everything from 8 through 12 underneath. And then you can stack dots neatly above so that we can see how many of each size are represented. For question 88, I have the number lines copied on your answer sheet for you, but it's up to you to complete them. We have some numbers filled in, but there are many that are missing. And to be able to figure out the missing numbers, you may have to look a little closer at some than others. Just as an example, one thing I could do is between 12 and 20, I know there's a difference of 8. 20 minus 12 equals 8. So if I count the spaces, 1, 2 spaces, and I think, how can I divide 8 evenly among 2 spaces? That would tell me how much each of these spaces will increase by. And once I know that, to work my way backwards from 12, I would just decrease 12 and then the next number by that amount each time. So it can work both ways. Question 89. There are two equivalent fractions, but one number, particularly a numerator, is missing. And first of all, the missing number is all I expect to see in the blanks for A, B, and C. So if I see that you wrote the whole thing, I know you didn't listen. If I see that you wrote the whole fraction, I know you didn't listen. So again, all I want to see is the missing number in the blank for A, B, and C. What you need to do is to figure out, okay, if I know both denominators, how do I get from 8 to 32? Or how do I get from 100 to 10? Once you know how that change takes place, you make the same thing happen to the numerators. And that's what will give you this missing number. For question number 90, this is something we've seen multiple times, and that's why it's now a checkpoint. They're saying, hey, you should know this by now very well. So with parts A through D, first thing I want to remind you is that you have to line up your digits and your decimal points. You also need to pay close attention to what operation you have. Some of you have learned this by now. Some of us still want to make sure we're paying attention. The last thing I want to remind you, you have to show me your work. You can't just copy the problem. I have to see the steps that you're going to take, especially for Part D. You really need to watch out for Part D because we have 90 minus this decimal. And to be able to do this, I have to make 90 become 90.000. And then I can subtract whatever I'm going to have under here, but you're going to have to come clear over to the 9 to borrow. So just a little something to watch out for there and some helpful reminders on what to do to be successful.